When God's ready to give you what you want, to bless you with your desires, it's gonna come so easily. But before we get into that, if you wanna have a conversation one-on-one with me, Yo Elliott, click the link down below and we'll have a conversation, mano y mano. We'll dig into your situation and come up with real solutions. So today we got a great question from a 24-year-old young man. He goes on to say, Yo Elliott, I'm not making much money, but I'm trying to save what I can. He says, recently an opportunity came where I could buy a house, but I'd be flat broke. He says, I will be broker than broke. Should I take the risk or continue living at home making money? All of my friends have houses already. I feel left out. I decided to go to college and I'm just starting my life. Most of my friends were in the trades and they got a house. I want that, but I know I'll be strapped. Great question, man. And so like I opened this conversation with, when the time is right, when the things that you want are ripe and ready to manifest in your life, it's gonna come easily. There should be no strain or struggle or willful effort. I'm telling you, it sounds crazy, especially coming from a willful guy. Like, I got a big ego. I want to make things happen. And I busted my face time and again trying to go against the grain. Let me tell you a little bit about houses and Uncle Elliot's experience. So when I was about your age, 22, 23 years old, I got married and started having kids very early on. And I wanted nothing more but to have a house, own a house for my family. And it was like around 2006, right? Like at the peak of the housing bubble, right before it burst in 2008. And it was like the worst time to buy houses. And nobody could have given me any kind of advice because I wanted it, right? And so the bank, which was a part of the problem with the real estate market, was the banks was giving out too many loans to people that weren't qualified, and I was not fucking qualified for a bank loan. But because of the creative financing that was associated with it, I was able to get a $150,000 mortgage on a townhouse in South St. Petersburg, Florida, and I was so happy as a result. I didn't look at the small writing inside the contracts. I didn't look at the boosts in you know, how the rates as they were going to progress. I didn't look at anything. I was just like, I knew what I wanted, and the bank was able to finagle some things, twist some things around, and get me that house. And I got to tell you, man, it was a bad decision because 2 years later, the market crashed as it was going to, right? The bubble burst. And that $150,000 mortgage that I got because I wanted it and I forced it through creative financing with a bunch of finaglers, I had to foreclose on. The house was worth less than $50,000. I lost all the money and I had to claim like bankruptcy, short closure, and the bank repossessed the house and sold it for like $40,000. Right? All because I wanted to make things happen on my time rather than waiting for it to unfold. I wanted to get out of my parents' house. I had a wife, I had kids, and I was like you, right? 7 years passed. I had to rent, right? And then mind you, my family's growing. My business is growing. Things are getting better. I wasn't as broke as I was when I was 24 like you, but I had to rent. I dumped a lot of money into renting, and it's okay. It was all right. I had no other choice, but I rented homes throughout St. Petersburg, Florida. And then in 2016, at the right time, without any real work on my part, it was kind of crazy. The house that God wanted me to be in was not only available, it was more affordable than I could have ever imagined. Because somebody else had a house that was like foreclosed, right? The guy was actually kind of like crooked. He was sort of a crook, and he lost a house when the market crashed because he was doing some creative financing. He was doing some schemish stuff. He was doing some bad things in 2008. He was one of the guys that ended up in jail. So his house got taken away and was sitting there in Feather Sound, Florida. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful neighborhood, like the perfect neighborhood for my family. Me and my wife went and looked at it, and it was like more than we could have ever imagined and cheaper than ever. And the financing and moving into the house was smooth, easy, no effort. It's almost like God was like, here, Elliot, you can have it now. I'm ready for you to have a home, right? So my point here is, man, like, we want what we want, and just like bratty little kids, we kick and we scream and we throw temper tantrums. And even if we do get what we think that we want, it almost comes from, like, imagine a parent when it gives a kid something after it throws a temper tantrum. There's disdain. It's like, all right, you little motherfucker, you want this? Here, fine, right? And the kid thinks he's happy. You're like, oh, I got it. But the parent has, well, in a way, cursed that thing, because it's like, here's that thing that you wanted, you little bastard, right? Like, so there's a bad attitude behind it because it was forced. It wasn't given. It wasn't a gift. And God is like a good parent that wants to give you a gift. He doesn't want you to pry it out of his hand. Like, give me that thing. Almost like the prodigal son, the story about the prodigal son, where he's like, Dad, give me what you owe me so I can go and do what? Blew it. He blew it all on prostitutes and drugs. Blew it. And God knows that if you get what you think that you want right now, you're not going to appreciate it. You don't deserve it. It's not the right time for you. Just like that little kid, he's going to get the toy and he's going to realize a little while later that, like, this is not what it was all cracked up to be. And God had something better. My father had something better for me, but I was just too impatient and too greedy to wait. But when we do wait, when God makes us wait, there's a whole lot of alchemy. There's a whole lot of growth going on underneath, right? Like, because we don't see the thing with our eyes, we're like, phooey, right? But if we're faithful and patient, there's a lot of amazing things that are happening behind the scenes, like your maturation process. Like, maybe you're not mature enough to have a house just yet. I don't know you. I know I wasn't. Right? God would have much rather me wait and then bless me. God also, just like a good parent, wants to give out of the goodness of his heart. Right? Like, if one of my kids wants something and he keeps whining and crying and pouting about it, and like I said, if I do actually give it to him, it was because it was wrestled from me, because it was violent. But if I know my kid wants something, and I know that, hey, there's a perfect time, like maybe his birthday's coming up, or maybe I can foresee something that he can't. And I'm like, okay, cool. I get it, child. You want this thing? You're going to get it. And in my heart, I want you to have it, but you got to wait. You got to wait. And I'll be so pleased even if the child is more patient, because I'm like, man, not only is this my favored child, but he's so patient. Look at him. He's not even complaining. And then when I give it, I'm giving it with a clean heart. No attachments, no karma. See, the problem with the house that I got when I was your age was that there was a lot of karma associated with it. What do I mean by karma? There was a lot of emotion. There was a lot of angst. There was a lot of, there was too much energy, too much potential, too much associated stuff with it, right? Signing all kinds of weird things, worrying if it's going to pass through, forcing stuff, right? All that stuff comes back and bites you, because nature is simple. Nature is easy. Nature doesn't force, but nature will make things happen when and where it wants to happen. Like, I'm looking at these cracks on the sidewalk in front of my house. Like, it's all concreted down, but right within these certain cracks, there are little plants growing up out of the cracks. Like, how is it that, like, how is it the fact that this whole thing is concreted down, but there's one little tiny crack, there's a seed coming out, because it was easy, because it was there, because nature decided that, like, oh, there's just enough nutrients in the soil here with just the perfect seed to fit in that little crack. And now I got weeds growing up out of my concrete. But it was easy for nature. Nature wasn't like, oh man, all this concrete, what are we gonna do? We gotta crack the concrete, we gotta break the concrete, we gotta make some space here because I want a big tree to come through. No, nature's like, find the path of least resistance. The path of least resistance. The path of least resistance. And that is what's going to that's what it's gonna feel like when God gives you what you want. And here's the thing, dude, when you do get it, it's gonna be 10 times better than you could expect it. But it requires faith. And faith is tough. And so that's how you're going to have to grow. That's the type of strength you're going to have to develop. Not forcing, not trying to make things happen, but being patient while holding gratitude in your heart for the thing before you get it. Done.